Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And we are back here with Gabriel, or Gabe Hop, as we like to call her, from One Tree Yoga, and also her other partner in crime as well, Alison Tigas, joining us here once again. And yes, they're co-owners of One Tree Yoga, based out of Nebraska. They have 2 locations. Besides the locations, you don't even have to be anywhere near them, because you could take a class live or recorded from anywhere around the world. So once again, we're live here with the ladies of One Tree Yoga, which is also their website, onetreeyoga.com. Welcome back. How are you?
Hello. We're doing great. How are you?
Doing good.
Doing well. How's the family? First and foremost, everyone's good?
Yeah,
everyone's good. Healthy for now.
Great.
For now. Yeah.
For new listeners today, let's just remind them a little bit about One Tree Yoga, and of course, what makes you all so unique. I know you guys been together for quite a few years. Like I said, partners in crime, in a great crime, yoga, which of course, as we've talked over the past few weeks, all the amazing benefits. So would you mind just giving us a little introduction?
Sure. You want me to start? Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So like Jill said, Gabe and I are partners in crime. We've actually been practicing yoga together for many, many years. We've been leading our teacher training together for almost a decade. And then we've been co-owners together of One Tree Yoga, the business, for almost 5 years now. So we work well together, I think. And
clearly.
Clearly, we hope. So our business, like you said, we have 2 locations. We have lots of different styles and options of classes. And then, we also have Zoom classes where you can attend live, or we'll send you the recording. And then we have a YouTube channel as well. So there's lots of ways to get to sort of take class with us or participate doing yoga with us.
Awesome.
You also asked what was unique about One Tree Yoga. So I think it's worth saying that we are really focused as a yoga studio on teaching people the discipline of yoga. So we consider, this is like a learning opportunity as much as it's an opportunity to be in your body and mind and breath. It's also important for you to learn along the way. And we're really focused on safety and alignment and meeting everyone where they're at in their yoga practice.
Exactly. You mentioned that. We have beginners, we have medium midlifers, we have seniors, or just say older people. I don't know how you want to pronounce it. Doesn't matter. If you're new to this, it doesn't matter. If you're old to this, doesn't matter. No matter what level you are, there's, they're willing to work with you, obviously, and you could take things at a different level, what's needed. And let's also talk today about maybe just the basic why of yoga. Why yoga? Why should we do yoga? Why choose yoga? There's Pilates, there's different athletic classes you can take. So why would you say you should do yoga?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's one that we get a lot. I think it's why we were hoping to sort of discuss that today. Because I think there are a lot of options out there, for different sort of physical disciplines. And I think hopefully after Gabe and I chat today, you'll sort of see why we think that, there's just so much more that goes into it and why it's really great for everybody. So, the obvious place to start is physical benefits. There are so many physical benefits to a yoga practice. I think that's what most people think of when they think of yoga. They think of somebody, in a picture doing some crazy pretzel-y
tree pose.
Tree pose. Yeah. And so, I think it's, that's what most of it is like you come to a class, you're going to move your body and you're going to make, different, we call them poses or postures, basically different shapes with your body. And, the benefit of that, of course, is flexibility. That's what most people think of. We're going to work on flexibility. We will do stretching. But the part that maybe doesn't get talked about as much as all the other physical benefits. So there's also a big strengthening component to most yoga classes, where sometimes it's those teeny tiny muscles that you don't really even know are there until the next day after class. You're like, oh my gosh, I feel so sore. And so there's this flexibility, strength. We also talk a lot about mobility, meaning, can we kind of move to a certain range of motion, but still keep some of that stability? And so that's kind of what we're after. It's like, what's functional movement that's going to actually help us, day to day, like what's going to help me get up and down off the floor with my kids and feel better in my body. And so
do it in a safe way where your body is accustomed to and not pulling or straining anything. And before you finish, and Gabe comes in. So here's this happened last week. Week both, right? I just walked down the steps and then I heard a crack and I must have weak bones. I broke my foot bone. But here we are talking about
and there's your boot.
Physical benefits. Which I didn't learn until like a few months ago when I had a herniated disc in my neck. The same thing. I made I'm going to start strengthening my body because it's going to help me in my future. And I started going to the gym, taking it slow, starting movement mobility, which is great for me. And now I have an injury. But it reminds you of how, not to say that every injury could be prevented, but it could lessen the blow in a sense. So, right. I mean, because in yoga, you're using your feet, everything you do, you could be strengthening those muscles. And some people like me, I guess, weren't, that could have held them in my bones better in, but it didn't. Sorry. But there are of course, physical benefits. Lower, isn't even lower blood pressure as well from doing any type of physical exercise.
Yeah. I mean, it really does work with muscles, bones, joints, our connective tissue, all
what
the
is that
fluid in our body, the fascia.
Fascia is fascinating when I learned about that. Okay.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
It's really going to address all areas of the physical body. Like you said, it doesn't necessarily prevent everything. I mean, people have injuries, but that, it sort of helps us with our proprioception of like kind of knowing where we are in space and understanding like, this is my right arm, this is my left arm. If I put my foot here and balance on this leg there, it helps people just really be in their bodies, be more aware of their bodies, and be able to move their bodies in hopefully an easier way or a more open, fluid way. It can be cardiovascular. Yoga can be cardiovascular, depending on the speed or the class you're in. There can be that component. And so, I think the physical benefits alone, in my opinion, it's just so sustainable. Like we said, we have classes sort of for anybody. And so, depending where you are in life or where you're starting out, there's something you can do and that we can always scale it back or up depending, what your injury is or what you're dealing with. And I think that's pretty amazing.
Awesome. Gabe, did you want to add to that before we head on and move on to a little bit about our mental well-being, which is going to be amazing too, because very helpful. But anything else on the physical front that you'd like to add?
I think Alison really covered it.
Also physical wise, don't people do yoga? They go yoga classes. You have hot, you have cold, to help lose weight too. I mean, right? Safe to say.
Sure. I mean, it is an exercise modality, and in the like full holistic practice of yoga, there are also like practices for how to eat according to your body type, and that sort of living in conjunction with your environment, and that just like promotes wellness overall and can definitely lead to weight loss as well.
Perfect.
I also think it's definitely like, I mean, sure, you compare yoga to like running, it's not going to burn the same amount of calories, but that yoga sort of overall, and Gabe will talk about this more, like promotes this idea of mindfulness. And that includes what we put in our bodies, how we, move about the world. And so I think sometimes building that mindfulness helps us sort of make decisions like, I really like love when I eat that, but am I going to feel better when I eat that sort of thing. So sometimes that sort of lends its way in that direction too.
All right. So mindfulness, great segue then into the mental health benefits of yoga. And we're here talking to the ladies of One Tree Yoga. That's onetreeyoga.com, based out of Nebraska, 2 locations, but they're live and up and running online, every platform, everywhere. You could take classes with them. So let's talk more then about the mental health benefits to start. Gabe, thank you.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about the mental skills that we learn through doing poses. And then also I want to touch on the mental component of sitting in meditation, which is a big part of the practice as well. So through, practicing poses, they require a large amount of concentration and attentiveness and mindfulness in the moment. So really there's a building of focus, there's a building of concentration, there's a building of presence, like the ability to just be with whatever is happening. Often it's uncomfortable. Yoga is accessible, but you're like working really hard to keep yourself in poses. And so it teaches us that the art of like, okay, this is uncomfortable, but I can be here. I can be with it through the breath, through, you know, my experience of mindfulness.
Discipline. It's creating discipline.
Yeah,
too,
discipline
right?
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And that, you know, that comes into like even like setting up your yoga schedule, like how many days a week am I going to go, and honing that discipline of sticking with it and staying with your practice for sure. There is a natural development of just like overall sense of calm and quiet and well-being. And I think that too comes from, you know, like being in hard pose and like, okay, well, here I am. Like, what are my options? Like I could like fight against this and like hate every second of it, or I could just like chill out, find the breath, you know, like be in the experience. And through that, and of course, like the breathing and the meditation, like at the end of class, there's a mental clarity and a sense of calm that is like almost impossible to put into words. It's like people refer to it as like yoga bliss, or like it's almost like you're like drunk on yoga. You know, you're just like on another plane, and it's something that in my experience like has really only happened through yoga. And then there's the whole sitting practice. There's meditation. So in our classes, we try to teach at least a few moments every class of like, whether it's sitting or lying down, that like paying attention to the breath, being in the experience. And in the yoga tradition of meditation, there's lots of different styles of meditation, but in the yoga tradition, you're really honing concentration. So you pick a point of focus and you try to keep your attention there over and over and over again. And the mind gets pulled away 1,000 times because you're like, what am I gonna have for dinner? When's my next vacation? I got a to-do list, la la la. And every time you're like, come on back, like stay in the breath. This is the moment now. And so through those meditative practices, we develop the ability to be mindful, be present, be intentional with, you know, every moment in our life.
After, I mean, this pandemic, which has increased the amount of stress and anxiety to everyone around the world, it's something we can all empathize with, but everyone has a higher stress level, I believe. Do you find more people coming now after the pandemic talking about all the stress they have and like, wow, this feels good. It's a stress reliever, right?
Yes, we have been so lucky that like most of our students stayed with us, you know, because we went online and we were able to keep bringing yoga to the people. Like most of our students stayed with us, but yeah, like those connecting to them and just learning about like everybody went through like extreme stress and anxiety, and even like, you know, the people who are coming back who we haven't seen for a few years, like, what's your story? What have you been up to? What did you go through? So I think it's absolutely true that yoga helped all the people who stuck with us through the pandemic, and now they're like, okay, I'm ready to get back to that, you know, stress-free or less stress experience that awesome. Yoga provided for me.
Great. Thank you again. Ladies from One Tree Yoga joining us. That's onetreeyoga.com. We're talking today about yoga in general, all these amazing benefits, health benefits, mentally, physically, and also it's good for the nervous system, you say. Alison, did you want to tackle that one or?
Sure, do it. So yeah, the nervous system, probably the longer I practice, the more I realize the positive impact it has on me in that way. So we sort of have two parts of the nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is sort of I like to call it the gas pedal. It's kind of how we are all the time. It's our get this stuff done, do all the things, fight or flight. Like I'm kind of like in this mode. And then we've got the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our slow down, our break, our rest, our digest. And for better or worse, modern living, especially in our country, is very much focused on, you know, striving and effort and hustle culture. And so, you know, many times a lot of us get stuck in this sort of sympathetic, heightened, you know, I'm trying to do 9 million things at once. And so what yoga can help us do, especially certain styles, but honestly, even more active styles, can really help kind of click on our parasympathetic nervous system and teach us to to sort of slow down, and it literally has physical impacts of the body, like the breathing can slow down, saliva slows down, all of these things. And so, the longer I practice, the more I see those benefits, not only in myself,
Okay.
but in our students, to see people are literally teaching their nervous system to sort of reset, or to know how to switch into that chill out mode. Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah, and I would just add, like, I think Alison is alluding to this, like the more you practice, the more you get, you hone that ability. And so you can just like go into that mode when you need to, like, oh man, I need to chill. Like I can take a deep breath and I can get right into that space of like, calm
That's
down,
my son.
chill out.
Well, I broke my foot on Thursday. My son turned 6 on Friday. So then he was so sick, I had to pick him up from school with a broken foot before the orthopedic. But then you pick him up and now he's really sick, ear infection, take him to the doctor. So now I got to get medicine. We all know about medicine. It's difficult for kids.
Yeah,
so I got my son, because he's in kindergarten. So last year in pre-K, he learned his teachers used to do yoga. Believe it or not, they would do yoga in class. It was the cutest thing because I didn't remember. He hasn't done it. And he's like, Mom, before I take it, it's like a 10 milliliter. Okay, now he's bigger. It's not 5. I need to breathe. He goes, in through the nose. His teacher really taught him, and he actually does this whole.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, this is the cue. I ran for the camera. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's like I'm breathing, Mom. It relaxes my heart. It relaxes my heart. So after a few deep breaths, he did the medicine, right? And then, the next day, a little less deep breaths. And then finally now yesterday and today, he does one and he's ready. My heart's calm. I got this.
He's ready.
He knows.
People, right? I mean, it's true. Breathing is
only we all could learn it at that age, like
I
that.
know,
I think
it's
that
so
all
cute.
the time. I'm like, man, it's the great thing about yoga becoming more popular, I think, is that, one of the great things is that, like, I think people are being exposed to it such younger ages, like at school and places like that was not a thing when I was a kid. And so I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And in general, yoga is helping people building different types of skills in life. Could you share some of these life skills that you believe yoga has really helped people, I guess, attain to their goals and to what they want to do in their life in general?
Totally. So I like to think of yoga on the mat. So like, when you're doing poses, when you're doing yoga practice, it's like an allegory for life. Okay. Almost everything that done in your life has or goes on the mat has some application outside of the mat. So the list could be like 1,000 things long, but I've honed it down to just a few things. So I think that it gives us confidence. So we learn how to literally stand up tall, right? Like literally have good posture. And that means that then we're moving through the world in a more confident state. You just become more comfortable too in your body and your mind and being with your thoughts. And so that, I think, provides a sense of confidence. Like when you're more comfortable with yourself, I think you're more, able to move throughout the world confidently. Yoga is hard. We say that a lot. And it requires a certain amount of rising to the challenge, as Glennon Doyle says, we can do hard things. I think about that in yoga a lot. Maybe not today, but if you keep coming, absolutely. And if you are willing to challenge yourself within the context of the mat, that will teach you that you can achieve difficult things, off the mat. And if you put your mind to it and your discipline, you hone that discipline, it will come. It teaches us to be accepting. So, maybe not today is a good motto. Maybe not today am I going to do that pose, or maybe not today am I going to, make it all the way through class without needing to take a break. But I'm okay with that, right? This is where I am today. This is where I need to, meet myself today. And so that, I think, when we can accept whatever is happening on the mat, then we learn that skill of acceptance, whether it's in, social situations or, in our own goals and achievements outside of the mat. The sort of flip side of that is that it teaches us non-attachment. So we are naturally clingy creatures, right? We're this is who I am. I represent this and I have achieved these things and I'm going to achieve these things. And when we can detach from like, oh, actually like achieving a certain pose, like if I can kick up into handstand, like, does that mean anything? Not really. It simply means like that I can kick up into handstand. And so we develop a certain detachment from like achieving these poses doesn't really change you as a person. And I think that that can help us to like separate, outside of the mat, like to be less clingy.
What is the hardest pose, by the way, for experienced yogis like yourself? Really, what's like what's the name of a very difficult pose?
I mean, the poses just go like deeper and deeper and deeper. Like it can get
you can take a pose like handstand, which is considerably hard for most people. We're not used to like being on our hands. It's like you can kick up at the wall. That's more doable for people. You can do it in the middle of the room. You can then do it in the middle of the room with your feet over your head, touching your head, so like you can take
and walking on your hands.
Yeah. And I mean, there's plenty of poses neither of us
and there's
can
always
or will
room
be able to
build upon.
And we stopped caring about that a long time ago.
Got it.
Well, luckily.
We also,
in the beginning, it's hard not to be like, I want to be able to do blank, but
I know I would be so intimidated in class with you, like, what? But no, you're not alone. Beginners are welcome. And we kind of touched upon breathing already just by accident through conversation, but is there anything else you want to talk about? Breathing and the benefits of this?
Yeah. I mean, clearly we're going to, as long as we're alive, we're going to breathe. It's just something I think we most of the time do without thinking about. And so yoga really teaches us to be tuned into breath, aware of breath. And the breath is really powerful. It has, this ability to be able to like calm our energy down or bring our energy up, depending how we're breathing. And so I think with yoga, there are not only are we reminding students, hey, don't forget to breathe, relax your breath, all of those things. We can also, there are specific breathing practices that we can teach and learn so that you can really kind of manipulate your breath in the way that you want. And therefore that, has an impact on your body, on your mind, all of those things. And so that's what's so great about yoga. It's really the only physical discipline that really does bring in the breath in that way, that awareness of breath and that working with breath. And so it's really powerful.
And is it really breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth? Is that true? How we should be breathing? Yes.
Sure, it can be.
Some people hold one nose. You can try to restrain things, but for the most part, because I always make the error, a lot of us, I guarantee if you're listening now, wherever you are, as long as you're not driving, and you can still drive and do this, I would say, take a deep breath in. Your diaphragm should be expanding, not I've always had the problem of opposite. Because being a dancer, being on television, you want to suck in. If I let my breath in, now my diaphragm is filled. So I bet you a lot of people do the same thing, and I catch myself a lot all the time doing the wrong way, opposite breathing, I call it, where you're breathing in, you're not expanding, you're decreasing. It's bizarre, but do you find a lot of people in your class like doing that? And you just because
very common. And the diaphragm's it's a powerful muscle, and so training people how to anatomically breathe correctly is a thing that we definitely do and work with. And like you said, we see it all the time.
Got it.
And like in your industry, like working with the breath, like it's going to make you so much more able to like sustain talking all the time and like have the like, experience of like comfort in the like talking experience. It's true for singers as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Now, what would you say for people in the community in general? What can yoga really bring to a community as a whole?
Yeah. I think that's one of the most special things, right? And that was maybe the challenge of COVID for us. It was like we felt so separate. I mean, humans are social creatures. Like we're not destined to do it alone. We like to be in community. Some people are more introverted, extroverted, fine. But in general, like we are social creatures. And so there's something really special that happens when you're in a room with other people that are kind of like there for the same reason, or that are, sort of like-minded in that way. It can be really powerful. There's an energy that's hard to put into words, I think. And I know as teachers, we missed that as much as people in the room. I think it just helps remind us that like, there's kind of this bigger purpose, and that, yes, I'm on my mat, I'm working with my body, my thoughts, but that this all sort of comes together and sort of helps shape who I am when I'm out in the world. And so I think it kind of shows that collective idea that, like, yeah, we're doing this thing for ourselves, but if we're all connected, it affects everybody.
Got it. And Gabe, do you want to comment on that before we move towards spirituality? Also, watching the clock, we have 5 minutes left. So I know we want to touch upon a few more things if we have time.
Yeah, no, I think Alison covered it well.
Next up, spirituality, ladies. How does yoga help us increase? And what is spirituality for those that may not even understand that concept? Think about it, right? We got to start basic for all the beginners too. What is spirituality?
I think it's a really important question because I think it freaks people out. And the first thing I want to say is that spirituality is totally separate from religion. It doesn't mean that you don't experience spirituality within your religion, but you do not have to be religious, and yoga is not a religious practice. But you can experience connection to spirituality through your yoga practice. So, yoga goes back thousands of years. These teachings are thousands of years old, and they come out of the Hindu tradition. So they come out of a spiritual tradition. So we don't want to separate from that, but we like to think of sort of smaller scale spirituality, like just the enjoyment that comes from paying attention, right? Like the enjoyment of small moments, and the more you are on your mat honing your ability to pay attention, the more you take that out into the world, and then you experience these small moments that spark joy that maybe you wouldn't have noticed had you not honed that practice. I think that it's also really important, an important aspect of the practice is that we really focus on gratitude and contentment with what we have. So one of the core tenets of the Eightfold Path, which is the path by which yogis live, is called Santosha, and Santosha means contentment.
Never heard of that.
Practice, so the practice of contentment is what do I have now that I can be happy about? And it's a way more accessible practice, I think, than trying to be happy all the time. It's actually, can I just be cool with what is, even when it sometimes sucks? Okay, this is what it is. This is life. And when things are hard, yes, things are hard, but what do I have to be grateful for? What do I have that is good, that I can, bring into my life? Also just how much more full and rich is your life if you are mindful, if you are present, if you can be present with your children, you can be mindful with your boss, if you can be just not always trying to distract yourself with your phone or your your to-do list.
Never easy, but yeah,
it's never easy, but
never.
When you catch those small moments, it's I think it's a spiritual experience. I'm doing it. I'm living my life. I'm here.
Well, ladies, unfortunately, we're out of time. I know there's more that we want to get to. Hopefully we can talk more on the next show, kind of maybe do a little teaser. We can maybe debunk some myths next week about yoga, the do's and don'ts of yoga. Maybe some people are freaked out by hearing the word yoga, so we'll have you clear up all those things. OneTreeYoga.com. And would you mind, of course, sharing any other forms of contact before we go?
Yep. So that's our website, OneTreeYoga.com. You can find us on Instagram, One Tree Yoga. You can find us on Facebook, One Tree Yoga Omaha. You can find us on YouTube, One Tree Yoga.
One Tree Yoga.
Just One Tree Yoga. And if you have questions specifically for us, you can email either of us at info@onetreeyoga.com.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for being here, occupying space again. And
good luck with your foot.
Thank you. 4 to 6 weeks. No driving. I'm you don't have kids. I'm really? I have no choice.
So hard.
But thank you. And learn my lesson again to start working out again, eventually to strengthen everything in the body. And by the way, that fascia. I want to talk more about fascia too next time. Have a great day, girls.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk soon.
Thanks,
to all
Jill.
of our listeners, thank you. Stay tuned. More of the shows coming right up after the break. Bye-bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.